Yes, we are ready.
Thank you so much. Ms. Warren, are we ready to come back onto the record? Thank you. It is 30. I will call the Board of Supervisors back to order. We are on agenda item 23A, which is discussion and possible action regarding the nomination for a single candidate to fill the vacancy for Senate seat for District 16. We're going to start with Mr. White. I believe you have a disclosure.
I do, thank you. The Nevada revised statutes impose statutory obligations regarding ethical disclosures, conflicts of interest, and abstention from voting. In my private capacity, I have consulted with Lisa Krasner, an applicant for Senate 16, on her campaigns in the past 3 elections for Assembly District 26. I have also spoken with Ms. Krasner about Senate 16 and the appointment process. I have never been a paid member of her campaign staff, never been in an employee-employer relationship, never accepted any payment for any consultation, and do not anticipate becoming a paid member of Ms. Krasner's campaign staff in the future. To date, I have never donated to Ms. Krasner's campaign, but I have committed to donate to her campaign if she runs for Senate 16, which encompasses Carson City. Although I do have a continuing consulting relationship with Ms. Krasner, political activity is protected free speech under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Article 4, Section 12 of the Nevada Constitution imposes a constitutional duty on each member of the Board of Supervisors to vote in this matter. I have conferred with the District Attorney's Office, and while I make this disclosure, I have been advised that I am not under a legal obligation to abstain from voting. Therefore, I will be voting on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. White. So just to double check, we have no candidates in the room. Is that accurate? Just want to make sure, because we're very conscientious here to make sure that each interview is done independently and you can't hear the responses from the others. So I'm just double checking in the room that there are no candidates. It is also my understanding, for the record, that we had withdrawals of application for consideration by Heidi Palmer, Tracy Smith, and Jeffrey Thide. So just so that everyone in the public is aware, those 3 have withdrawn their applications for consideration. So we will not be interviewing them today. The process that is going to occur is what we do on every board commission activity. We will bring each individually in so that they can be questioned. Each member of the board will ask them one question, and then they're welcome to stay and hear the next set. They just can't hear prior to their own turn. At the end of the interview process, this board will then deliberate and select our single candidate to put forward at the joint meeting with Washoe County on November 10th. So that is the process that we're going to utilize today. The first one we are going to interview, because he has requested this to be via WebEx, and the only way we can again meet the conditions and give fair play to all is Mr. Garazi. It's my understanding he is on the WebEx. Do I have Mr. Garazi? I can see his name.
Hello.
Oh, there we go. Mr. Garazi, thank you so very much for applying for this position today.
Well, thank you for accommodating me. And I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person.
That's all right. We understand life sometimes just doesn't align for everything to come perfectly. Were you able to hear the process that we're going to do?
I did.
Okay, with that, then we'll get started. I ask if you can please kindly limit your responses to each question to the best of your ability to accommodate our full schedule today. So if you can be clear, concise, and to the point, we would really appreciate that. Can
Very
you
well, thank
please tell us why you believe you should be selected as the candidate to fill the seat, and whether you are going to run for the seat and why or why not?
Well, I'll start off with I was born and raised in San Francisco. You guys have my bio there as well. And I grew up in San Francisco, and it was fairly a safe community at the time I grew up there. And as you know, it's right next door. San Francisco has changed. Walgreens, you don't get prosecuted for under $1,000 anymore. And I do not want that to happen to Nevada. And well, with all the inflations happening, mandates, illegals now are getting 400, I don't know if it came through or not, but $450,000 for illegals. I mean, I'm just upset about everything. So I decided it's time. It's time to begin my career in the politics because I want to change a lot of things. And I want to help Nevada out and the voters. And because I talk to my buddies, my friends who are all over the United States and Florida, and everybody I know is starting to get involved.
Okay, and then did
Anything
you
else?
want to answer whether you're going to run for the office and why or why not?
I am not sure yet. I'd like to find out what this entails, and I will hopefully be selected to represent Washoe County and Carson City.
Okay, so here's the first questioning. We'll start down the rounds here. Can you tell me what committees Senator Keffer sat on and what experience you have to fulfill those roles?
Can you repeat that, please?
Absolutely. Can you tell me what committees Senator Keffer sits on and what experience you have to fulfill that role?
Like I said, I've never been in politics before. This is the first time, and I'm not aware of, he retired or decided not to pursue his political career anymore. And I have no idea which committees he has sat on.
Thank you, Mr. Garazi. Supervisor Gioma, your question, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grazi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. The most immediate issue that you'll address as a state senator is redistricting in the coming special session. I'd like to hear what your approach will be in regards to redistricting. And then what concerns do you have about redistricting and how will you address those concerns?
Like again, I stated before, my politic experience is nil because I am just very upset what's happened to our country, what's been happening. I mean, to me, I would say a different word. My buddies and I talk about it all the time. And to redistrict, I'd have to get more involved in that to be able to answer that question. So I just wasn't prepared for that question at all. I'm not really prepared for any questions. I'm just going off the cuff, everything I'm saying, because I just got back from my meetings in the business that I'm in, and I couldn't get out of it. I surely tried because I wanted to be face to face with you guys, but I can't really answer some of these questions that you're throwing at me because I didn't really prepare for that.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor White, your question, please.
Thank you. So, are you familiar with the Carson City Charter? And if you are, do you foresee any needed changes to the Carson City Charter?
If you tell me, tell me the charter. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just an individual who's, again, wants to whatever. I'd like to like I said, I talk to people all the time in Incline Village. That's where I'm from. Incline, that's where I live. I talk to people in Florida, and to ask me these questions at this time without any prep work, it's hard for me to answer because I have to review it all. I'm not in the political realm. I'm just trying to change whatever Sisolak has done with the mandates and everything else. He's killing everybody. I mean, I just want to get a better, I want to change Nevada. I don't know if Nevada is entirely right. I want to change things how they're going right now. And I guess we're getting Afghan refugees here in Reno. Boy, oh boy. So I'm just expressing my concerns, and that's the reason I'm doing this.
Thank you. Supervisor
I'd like
Jones,
to
your
second the-
question?
Good afternoon. You mentioned that
How you doing?
you mentioned you weren't sure that you would run for reelection if you were appointed. What would be some of the things, what factors would you need to determine whether you would run or not?
To see what the job's about, see what being a senator is about for Nevada. How much, well, I have to say it's depending on what's entailed. Because I don't want to be pushed, being pushed, or I just want to be a part of the conversation and be a voice for the Nevada voters is what I'm trying to do. From all my friends here in the districts, they tell me things they don't like. Just an example, election integrity, ID verification. I got things I hear all the time, and that's the reason why I'm doing this. I'm just a regular person who wants to get involved now since I have the time. My daughter is living in Reno, and she's an attorney with Maupin, and she's the one saying too, get involved. You talk about everything, get involved. So here I am. So I may run for it. I just don't know.
I understand. Thank you.
Supervisor Schutte, your question, please?
Thank you. What do you believe is essential when working with people who hold fundamentally different views?
What do I think is essential for what?
When working with people who hold different views, within the Senate, you
You
will
mean like
be
Democrats, Republicans?
correct.
Like between Democrats and Republicans,
Yes,
and
different
also the
representatives.
left and right? Well, when I have friends who are on the left side, and it's very difficult to talk with them. They have one opinion and only one opinion. And to be able to try to change the way they think, or they try to change the way I think, it just doesn't. We're friends with both sides. I'm friends with people up here in Incline Village who are on the other side, on the left. I'm on the right, by the way. I'm conservative. I don't know if you knew that or not, but I am conservative. I believe I'm a Christian. I believe all skin colors doesn't really matter. You can be, and that's why CRT. I'd like to get rid of that thing. I don't hope it's not going to be in Nevada. Get rid of CRT. There's a lot of things I do not like what's happening, and I don't know how much more I can express that. But I actually, being in sports, I don't know if you've seen my bio or not, but I played a little baseball, and I've been in sports with all sides and everything else, and I get along with everybody. And sometimes when you talk about politics, you got to step back. It just doesn't work sometimes. But when you talk with politics with the same what everybody thinks the same way, then you can talk about it. And that's what my friends are in Florida, in Texas, that we talk about different things. And these guys are all getting involved as well as I am. And that's what that's the reason I put my application in. And I don't know how else to answer that question. I'm sorry, I'm not really good at answering all these questions you guys are throwing at me. Now, if you talk about real estate, business, or something else, I'll go on and on and on.
Thank you, Mr. Garazzi, very much for applying today. We are now going to bring in the next candidate. Again, you are online and welcome to stay and listen to the results of the others. You do not have to, but we want to, again, thank you for exercising your civic rights and applying. So it's important, and we thank you no matter the results. It was a privilege to talk to you today.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, we are now going to move on. Is Ms. Clement here? Okay, we'll have Ms. Clement, please. Darn it. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming today to apply for this position. Would you state your name for the record, please?
Absolutely. For the record, my name is Melissa Clement.
Thank you so much. So the process that we're going to do, Ms. Clement, is we'll just have some general opening comments by myself, and then we will go through and each of us will ask you a question.
Okay.
And then at the conclusion of that, you are welcome to stay and listen to the answers from the others. As you can see, you're all sequestered so that you can't hear the other person's responses in fairness. Being last man might be advantage, but in this case, we're restricting that the others cannot hear. But once you are completed with your interview, you're certainly welcome to stay.
Thank you.
At the conclusion of all interviews, this panel will make our decision. So again, I just want to, for the record, thank you so very much for applying. It is wonderful to see all of the civic participation. It's a good thing. So if you can, in the interest of time for all, if you can be clear and concise in your
Okay.
answers, it would be most appreciated. So why don't you start by telling us why you believe you're the best candidate for this position and whether or not you're going to run for this seat, and why or why not?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. Just brief background on me is I have lived here in Nevada, Northern Nevada, since I was 15 years old. I've lived in Senate District 16, owned a house there for the last 15 years, raised my kids there. I have 3 kids and I'm married. I've been involved for a long time in the legislative process. I work for a small nonprofit that represents the entire state. And so I've spent a lot of time lobbying in the legislature, working with community boards like this. And I have a real love for policy and the procedure of legislating. But even more so, I love my state. We live in the best state in the entire union. And quite honestly, Senate District 16 is the best district, whether it's South Reno where I live, Carson City, or Incline Village. There's no better place on earth. And I want to make sure that I leave this state for my kids and my grandkids so that they have the same opportunity I always had here. The fact that a person like me can apply for a Senate seat, that's pretty awesome when you think about it. I traveled the entire state this last year doing a statutory initiative to protect young girls. And during 2020, I got to see the outcome of decisions that were made at the highest level in our state that were so painful for our citizens, for our families, for our businesses. And quite honestly, I want to do whatever I can to help with that. Why am I the best one? Well, because number one, I'm not going to run again. I want to be able to be that voice that doesn't have anything but kids, families, and businesses to advocate for. I don't have anybody at the end of the day, other than maybe my husband, to answer to. And at this time in our state's history, I think that's incredibly important.
Okay, so then I'll start with my question, which is, what committees did Senator Keffer sit on, and what experience do you have to support that role?
Okay, so he sat on finance, of course, which is super important for this particular special session because there's going to be millions of COVID monies flowing into our state, and it's important that somebody can advocate for our communities, our industries, our families, so that money is spent in the best possible way, so that it's not just doled out as candy And it's because our kids, our grandkids are going to be paying for it for a long time. And there are a lot of people that were hurt in the last year and a half. And so any money that we get should be going to those people to make them right so that we can not get to a new normal or build back better, but to get back to normal. That's one. Health and Human Services. That is where I dealt with Senator Kekeffer most often. Most often I was testifying in that committee. I'm very familiar with the types of issues that they deal with. That's super important. Again, to use a key word there, super important. It's super important because with the COVID crisis, we have made some good decisions health-wise. We've made some really bad ones as well. And I think our medically vulnerable, our elderly, and our young kids have really suffered a price because of it. Let me think. I am not sure what his third committee is, so I will be.
All right. Thank you so much. Supervisor Giomi, your question, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Clement, for applying. I think one of the most immediate issues that you'll address as a state senator is redistricting in the coming special session. What will your approach to redistricting be? Be specific, please. And then what concerns do you have overall about redistricting, and how will you address those concerns?
The most important thing with redistricting is good policy can't be made unless we have the proper diversity sitting in those buildings down the street. And by diversity, I mean diversity of industries, because what works in Nye County, where there's mining, where my family owns a mining property, is very different than Clark County, is very different from Washoe County or Carson. And so we need to have adequate representation as best as we can draw those lines so that geographically we are represented properly. There are so many different needs in our state. And so if it's just carved up so that Clark County gets all of the power, then we're really in a bad spot. And, I consider myself, while I've lived in Washoe County for so long, I'm much more of a rural kind of person because I have a background in mining and I feel very connected with the ranching and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen in the last couple of sessions where there really hasn't been the necessary voices. I mean, there have been good voices, but not enough to protect, especially, every county but Clark County, sadly. So that's going to be my number one goal. I also, quite honestly, it does need to be that there is political equity too, but that's quite honestly really difficult to achieve with the numbers that we have in the building. So I would say that probably geographical diversity is going to be the most important thing.
Thank you so much. Supervisor White, your question, please.
And thank you for being here today, Melissa. Are you familiar with the Carson City Charter? And if you are, do you foresee any changes needed to the Carson City Charter?
I will be honest, I don't, but I definitely will be looking it up as soon as I walk out of this room because now you've got me curious.
Thank you. Supervisor Jones, your question, please.
Good afternoon.
Good.
You mentioned a couple of items on the special session that we're anticipating. My information tells me that 73 to 75% of the population of the registered voters live in Clark County.
Correct.
How do you plan to equalize the geographic redistricting?
It's a good, very good question. And, in a dream world, everybody would just understand that that's important. I think what I bring to the table is I have some very strong relationships with the legislators from Clark County, both sides of the aisle. And so truly the only thing I can offer is, is that I will be fighting the entire time by persuasion, which is probably one of the only tools we have at this point. I don't know that we have a carrot or a stick we can offer. Clark County, other than we provide so much to the state in terms of what our state means.
Oh, great, yeah.
Thank you. Supervisor Schutte, your question, please?
Thank you so much for applying. My question is, what do you believe is essential when working with people who hold differing views, differing perspectives?
Excellent question. Relationships are the most important thing in lobbying. Relationships are the most important thing in life. And so the most important thing in that, you achieve that through integrity and the value of your word. I think it's also really important to recognize that people have different viewpoints. And, I advocate for a viewpoint that a lot of people don't have. But I take it as there are two kinds of people in this world, people who agree with me and the people who will someday agree with me. I'm
pretty
only
good.
kind of joking with that. But I use a sense of humor. I use, I have a true desire to hear everybody's story because everybody's got a story. And once you find that story, you create a bond with that person and you can work with them. I have friends in the legislature who have been friends for 35 years who are most definitely do not agree with me on most everything, but at the end of the day, we're still friends. And at the end of the day, I know that they have the right to their opinion. So I think it's just, how our mom and dad raised us, treat people nicely.
Thank you.
Again, I want to thank you so very much for applying for this position. It's such an honor to watch the exercise of civic duties and to see people apply and put their heart and soul into being a part of their communities and things. So I want to just thank you again on behalf of this board for your application.
Thank
You're
you, Mayor.
welcome to
Thank you,
Stay in the
supervisors.
audience now and listen to the
Absolutely.
next one if you'd like. Okay, Ms. Paulson, will you see if Ms. Glover is here? So we have Mr. Goodnow. We'll come back and we'll give Ms. Glover all the way to the end, and then we will not consider her if she does not show up. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Ms.
Thank you.
Bagwell.
Please state your name for the record.
For the record, my name is,
Oh, I thought he was just hitting it. Go ahead.
thank you. For the record, my name is Rue Goodnow, Goodenow.
Thank you so much. So I want to thank you in advance again for applying for this position. It's so wonderful to see everyone exercise their rights and doing this civic duty. You are asked to please limit your answers to be as clear and concise as possible. So as we have a lot to get through today, a lot of candidates, you are welcome upon the conclusion of this to stay and then listen to the responses of the other members if you'd like. So what's going to happen is we're going to ask you, each of us, a series of questions, and then at the final conclusion of the interview, we will select a candidate. So again, thank you. So I'd like to just start in general with why you believe you should be selected to fill the seat 16 and whether or not you're going to run for the office. And then why or why not?
Thank you, Ms. Bagwell. I'll start with why I want to run and then conclude with whether or not I would run for the seat after redistricting. First, there are three main reasons that I decided to throw my hat in the ring. One is home means Nevada. We, more than 30 years ago, my wife Sue and I moved out here from Iowa with our then infant daughter, and I loved the place then, and I love it now. And I think we all have a duty, and thank you for doing yours, to make this the great place that we either moved to or grew up in. And that's my first reason. I have a lifelong commitment to civic involvement. Secondly, I think I have some talents that may be useful if I'm appointed to this position. I think that whoever you appoint will have to hit the ground running. And I've spent more than 30 years practicing law in Nevada, mostly as a business lawyer. I'm not a lobbyist. I have run for office, but not in the legislature. I was president of the State Bar Association. I did 3 terms there. And so I had to get elected to do that. But basically, I'm not a politician. I'm a lawyer, but I have represented elected officials. I've assisted in writing statutes. I've interpreted the law in the state of Nevada. I've been involved in ethics issues as counsel to elected officials. I'm very familiar with Nevada's legislature, with its court system, with the executive branch, and so I'd be able to hit the ground running on what I think is the principal issue, and I expect you're all focused on it, and that is redistricting, right? And I've spent time studying the statutes and case law surrounding that issue. I got on the website, I looked at the, and signed up for the website that the state has purchased using that software. I've argued constitutional cases, and so I'm very familiar with that area of the law. Lastly, I have a history of civic involvement. I mentioned my involvement with Bar Association. After that, I ran for president of the National Conference of Bar Presidents and was elected, served in that capacity. After that, I went on the Board of Governors, was elected to the Board of Governors of the American Bar Association, and just finished my last term. I'm term limited out on that, so I have time to take this on. I've had a successful law practice here for a number of years, and so I have the time to do this. And I have 4 daughters that I raised here, and one of them still here with with 2 of my grandchildren, and I'm just hoping to can make this the same kind of place for them to live in that I love.
And you will or will not run for the office?
Yes, finally, I do not intend to run for the office. One of the reasons that I threw my hat in the ring is because I don't think it's appropriate for the person who you would appoint to also be deciding what the district looks like thereafter.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so my question as the mayor for you is, what committees did Senator Keffer sit on, and what experience do you have to support those committees?
I haven't studied Senator Keffer's committees, and my experience is primarily with respect to business law in the state. I'm a business lawyer, and I've helped people organize their business interests for many years.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Giommi, your question, please.
All right, thank you. You talked a little bit about it in your, oh, it's me who's talking. You can't tell who's talking without, with a mask on.
I'm there now.
I guess we should raise our hand.
Thank you.
In any case, you briefly discussed redistricting, and I think obviously that's going to be one of the topics, if not the main topic, in the upcoming special session. So what will your approach be specifically to redistricting? That's the first part. And then secondly, what concerns do you have about redistricting, and how will you address those concerns?
Well, thank you, Mr. Giommi. I think it's important that redistricting satisfy the constitutional principles governing the one person, one vote requirements. I do think it's important that the person that serves in this capacity develops an understanding of the systems that are being proposed to be used for redistricting, and I would propose to do that, and have started down that road. I think that it's important because of where this district is presently located, that person have an attachment to and an involvement in northern Nevada, and the representation for northern Nevada, which I think is key. And then finally, there are several issues that have been talked about. I've attended remotely the hearings that have taken place. Both, I didn't attend the third one, but I attended the first 2, and I thought that some of the issues that were raised are going to, in one of the ones that was kind of raised most strongly was the prison issue. And I think whoever gets appointed to this position needs to really dig into that issue and understand it. And that would be my goal. Also, there have been a lot of citizen comments during those hearings about the representation of certain blocks for shorthand, I'll say minority blocks. And I think that it is important that the person who you appoint be cognizant of the rules governing the establishment of districts to take into account minority representation.
Supervisor White, your question, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Rue, for being here today. So, are you familiar with the Carson City Charter, and do you foresee any changes to that charter?
I have, first of all, the straight answer to your question is, I couldn't quote you the Carson City Charter or provisions of it. Now, have I
Neither can
read
I.
it? I certainly have. And in the past, I have looked at it. I've looked at the charters of other cities in Nevada for professional reasons in the past. But I'm not very familiar with it, and no one has mentioned any changes to it. Certainly, that's something, if it were to come up, we'd need to look at. I am familiar with the geographical boundaries of Carson City and the history behind it, its status as equivalent to the counties. That I'm familiar with.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Jones, your question, please.
Afternoon. It's pretty common knowledge that between 73 and 75% of our registered voters reside in Clark County. How do you propose to keep that geographically imbalanced with the rest of the state?
Yeah, Mr. Jones, that's a tough question, obviously, and it's going to be, I think, an important reason for you to appoint, to choose the person you appoint to this position. The person who you appoint to this position has to be able to sit in a room and represent the Northern Nevada constituency in a way that will be respected by legislators from the South. And I think I can do that. I've done that before. That's my job for more than 30 years, is to present tough positions. And certainly a working knowledge of the law is going to be real important in doing that, because it's going to be difficult given the numbers, as you know.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Supervisor Schutte, your question, please.
Thank you for applying for this. It's a big undertaking, and we appreciate it. My question is, what do you believe is essential when working with people who hold differing views and perspectives?
Thank you, Ms. Schutte. I think that the first and most important key to working with other people is to listen. And I'm not really sure that that there is anything that even comes close to that. Certainly a willingness not just to listen, but to consider another person's point of view. I do hold strong personal views, and you can see from my resume that I do. But I also, over the course of my career and involvement, have served in leadership positions where I dealt with boards that included a broad variety of constituencies, and I worked with them effectively to achieve positive outcomes for a variety of organizations. And so I think that listening to other points of view and then seeking to understand them before you seek to make yourself understood is important. But in the final analysis, the ability to be professional and to have the character to recognize that sometimes you're wrong, and I have been from time to time, and to also have the fortitude of character to, whether it's unpopular or unpopular, to speak your mind and to stand up for what's right and the things that you've promised that you will do. And I've done that. I've had to do that before the highest court in Nevada. I've had to do it before federal courts. And if I'm appointed to this position, I would do it in the legislature.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much again for participating today in the interview process. I think all of us are very excited to see this civic activity happen. Not so sure we're thrilled we have to make a choice, but it is a process that's a great thing to participate in. So again, you're welcome to stay if you would like.
Mayor Bagwell, thank you so much for your time and your service, and I look forward to the outcome here.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you all.
I believe the city manager's gone out to see if Mr. Haslam is ready. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Great. If you'd please state your name for the record.
My name is Ron Haslam.
Ronald Haslam. Okay, Mr. Haslam, just a little bit of brief background on what's going to happen here today. So we are going to, each of us, ask a series of questions. At the conclusion of it, you are more than welcome to stay because now you will have had your interview questions, so you're welcome to hear all the rest of the candidates after you, if you would like.
I'll leave, ma'am.
That's all perfectly up to you.
Okay, thank you.
So, and I ask you, if at all possible, when answering the questions, to please be as concise and to the point as you can, because as you can tell, we have quite a few candidates to
Sure.
interview here, so your help on that matter would be most appreciated. And just want to start again with a big thank you for participating in this civic process. We really are thrilled with all of the applicants that are taking of their time to put forth their civic duty. So
Great, thank you.
thank you so very much. So I'm going to start off with just in general, can you please tell us why you believe you should be selected as the candidate to fill seat 16, and then whether or not you're going to run for the seat? Why or why not?
I'm not applying with a political agenda. I assume that I would be taking over Mr. Kiekenheffer's current projects and progressing them for the next year. So no, at this time, I don't have plans to run for the seat.
Okay. All right, so then I'm going to start with my first question, which you almost alluded to a little bit there. You tell me what committees Senator Kiekenheffer sits on and what experience you have to support those committees.
I do not. What I saw in Mr. Senator Kiekenheffer's committees were, he was predominantly on committees with the Health and Human Services Department. And I know that he had worked for that department one time before, and that's the extent of it. I don't know any specifics.
Okay, great. Supervisor Giomi, your question, please.
Yes, thank you. One of the most immediate issues you'll address in this role is in the upcoming session, and that's redistricting. So I'd like to know what your approach to redistricting is, if you could be specific. And then I'd like to know what concerns you have about redistricting in general and what you'll do to address those concerns.
Redistricting to me means that you have to base it on party membership and the population. And I'm not sure redistricting is based on the census, and so I guess it would be my priority to get the new citizens of my district involved in the voting process, hopefully, in my party voting process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor White, your question, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Ronald, for being here today.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the Carson City Charter? And if you are, do you foresee any needed changes to the Carson City Charter?
No, sir, I'm not.
Thank you.
Supervisor Jones, your question, please.
Good afternoon. It's pretty common knowledge now that the census has been taken that 73 to 75% of all registered voters reside in Clark County. How do you propose to, talking redistricting now, to make this as equitable as possible, keeping in mind where the preponderance of the voters are, and taking care of Northern Nevada?
Well, my understanding of the redistricting is kind of cut and dried. I mean, it's based on a population, so if it's predominantly, if the districts are growing in Las Vegas bigger than they are here, it's just a matter of fact that there are more people moving down there. I know we have districts, we have a considerable population growth up here, but I'm not sure to the same percentage.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schutte, your question, please.
Thank you for your application and thank you for your service.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, what do you believe is essential when working with people who hold differing views or perspectives? And I can,
You mean as far as on a committee or people that you represent?
well, people in general, so if you're selected and working in the state senate, working with people of differing perspectives, differing viewpoints, what do you believe is an essential skill?
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty much partisan. I'm pretty broad-minded. I'm not zeroed in on my own beliefs. I can be not necessarily swayed, but I can be convinced or even compromise on what I think. I think it's essentially, like I said, partisan. If it's a group of people or if it's one or two people, the negotiations, you can compromise with each other pretty well. I can.
Thank you so much for applying for this position and again, participating in the civic process. Can't thank you enough for doing this. At the end of all the interviews, we will make our decision. And again, thank you. You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to
Okay,
leave.
great, thanks.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
your
again
time.
for your time. Good afternoon. Come on up and please make sure the light is green.
Would you like me to sit here?
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you, Lisa. Ms. Paulson, has Ms. Glover arrived? No, still? Thank you.
May I remove my mask?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You are more than 6 feet from anyone. Just make sure.
Okay.
Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping so you're aware of what we're going to do here this afternoon. I ask that you limit your responses to the questions to be as clear and concise as possible, but to help us move along in this process as we have quite a few interviews to complete. We will, each of us, ask a series of questions. Upon the conclusion of that, you are welcome to stay. Because at that point now, you will have completed your interview questions and you may wish to stay and hear the responses of the ones following you, but you are not required to do so. We will then, at the end of the final interview today, we will be making our selection. So that's just a little bit of housekeeping. So what I'm going to do is just start off with a question in general. Can you please tell us why you should be selected as the candidate to fill seat 16 and whether or not you're going to run for the office and why or why not?
Okay. So I have some prepared comments. Good afternoon, Mayor Bagwell and honorable members of the Carson City Board of Supervisors, excuse me. I am Nevada State Assemblywoman Lisa Krasner. I thank you for the opportunity to be here today before you. I would like to share with you my background and my experience. My father immigrated to this country as a young man. He taught himself how to read, write, and speak English, and he worked hard for his family. From my father, I learned the value of hard work. I am the current sitting Assemblywoman for Nevada State Assembly District 26. I was first elected in November 2016. I have served in the 2017 Nevada Legislative Session, the 2019 Nevada Legislative Session, and the 2021 Nevada Legislative Session. I'm also an adjunct professor at Truckee Meadows Community College, where I teach in the Political Science Department, teaching courses on the United States Constitution and Nevada Constitution. Prior to that, I was an adjunct professor at University of Phoenix, teaching courses on political science, the United States Constitution, Nevada Constitution, advocacy and mediation, business law, critical thinking, and state and local political processes. I'm a registered arbitrator for the Better Business Bureau. I was a non-paid lobbyist in Nevada from 2007 to 2013. I'm a former commissioner on the State of Nevada Commission on Aging and Disability, a former commissioner for the City of Reno Recreation and Parks Commission, advocating for a family-friendly environment in our community, a former board member of the State of Nevada PTA Board of Directors, former president of the Reno Philharmonic Guild, former board of directors with the Alliance with Washoe County Medical Society, former board member of the Junior League of Reno, and a current board member of Women in Government, a national organization that helps women across the 50 states run for political office. I've also been a judge for the We the People Civic Engagement Program for high school students since 2013. I have a Juris Doctorate degree and a bachelor's degree. I'm married to Charles Krasner, MD. We have 2 adult children and 2 dogs. It's been an honor to serve as your Assemblywoman for 3 regular sessions and 2 special sessions. I put my heart and soul into my work, as well as an enormous amount of time and effort. I take my job very seriously. Even though Nevada legislators are supposed to be part-time, to me it is more than a part-time job. It's a full-time responsibility. I am good at what I do, and I love my work. I am known for my bipartisan legislation, and I proudly invite both Democrats and Republicans to co-sponsor bills with me. We don't need a seat filler. We need a senator. We need someone who is accountable to the people with extensive and current legislative experience, knowledge of the law, budgets and finance, and someone who can hit the ground running. And I am the only person on the list of applicants who has all of these qualifications. I am a take-charge person with strong, proven leadership. My experience in the Nevada legislature makes me the best person for the job. Someone cannot just walk in the door of the legislature and know how things run today. It takes time to learn. There's a learning curve, but I can start working immediately. I know how to work together with others to get things done, and I am uniquely qualified to serve during this special session on redistricting. I am a proven, experienced, and effective legislator, and we need experience in the Senate. I have been an active participant in our community for 17 years. I love Nevada, and I care about the people who live here. I am confident that the wisdom I have gained as a state assemblywoman will allow me to serve as a valuable member of the state Senate. I am the right person for this position. I respectfully ask for your vote.
And you will run for the seat?
Yes,
Right.
I will run wholeheartedly, absolutely intending to do it, and I've already announced. I announced prior to Senator Kekeffer announcing his retirement that I was going to run.
Okay, so I'll start with my question, and then we'll go through the board questions. Can you please tell me what committees Senator Kekeffer sat on and what experience you have to support those committees?
Yes, happy to do so. Senator Kekeffer sat on the Health and Human Services Committee. I've sat on the Health and Human Services Committee in the 2019 legislative session and also in the 2021 legislative session. So I am intimately aware and involved of everything that goes on in the Health and Human Services Committee. And I have excellent relationships with the people on those committees and all the players who come before the Health and Human Services Committee, as well as those lobbyists. Additionally, he sat on the Finance Committee, and he sat on the Interim Finance Committee. As a legislator, it's part of my job to know the budget. It's part of my job to review the budget each and every session, and I have done so. They give us large binders every session. I don't know if other people do this, but I feel that it's my duty to read those big, large binders and go through them and intimately make myself aware of the money that's coming in, the sources, the revenue, the expenditures, what people want, what people don't want. Furthermore, I vote on every single bill. Those are the budget bills and all the other bills that have fiscal notes on them. So yes, I am 100% ready to start on the interim finance committee and the finance committee that will be for Senate finance. Yes, 100%.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Giomi, your question, please.
Thank you, Ms. Krasner. As you know, one of the most immediate issues in the upcoming session is redistricting. So I'm interested to know what your approach to redistricting will be, and if you could be specific. And secondarily, what concerns do you have about redistricting, and what will you do to address those concerns?
So the first part of your question is, I am the only one of the 13 applicants involved in this process who already has redistricting experience. I have worked with Legislative Council Bureau map and redistricting specialist Robin Evans on 2 different occasions. So I already know how to draw the maps, how to include people, how to exclude people, how to move things around. If you need to shave people, how to do that. I'm very familiar with the redistricting process already because I've already had 2 sessions with the Legislative Council Bureau map and redistricting expert. That's number one. Number two, I'm a bipartisan legislator. I don't want anybody doing something like gerrymandering districts so that it would be harmful to any people in the state of Nevada. So my intent would to be fair and bipartisan and try to work together with others. Serving 3 regular sessions and 2 special sessions in the Nevada legislature and being known for my bipartisan legislation, I work across the aisle always. My very first bill in the Nevada legislature was bipartisan bill, and I had, 16 legislators sign on of both Republicans and Democrats. I can work together with others. I know how to compromise.
Supervisor White, your question, please.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity.
So, are you familiar with the Carson City Charter? And if you are, do you foresee any changes that are needed in that Carson City Charter?
I am familiar with the Carson City Charter because one of my favorite supervisors told me to read it, and I did. That was you. I don't foresee any changes in the Carson City Charter at this time. If I did see anything coming up in a bill regarding the Carson City Charter, the first thing I would do would be to reach out to Mayor Bagwell and all of the members here before me today, all the supervisors, and immediately include you in the process and include you in all discussions on what you think would be best for the city that you're looking over.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Jones, your question, please.
Good afternoon. I have 2 questions. 73 to 75% of all registered voters after the last census reside in Clark County. How do you plan to overcome this to ensure that Northern Nevada gets equal consideration during redistricting?
Going back to my bipartisan legislation and the fact that I'm known for working across the aisle with my colleagues, I have friends who are legislators in the South, as well as friends who are legislators in the North, as well as legislators in the rurals. I make it my business to know each and every legislator, whether they're a Democrat or Republican in the Senate or in the Assembly. People are reasonable when they see that you are. I would work together with my colleagues, and I would talk to them and say, let's be fair. Let's try to work together and do what's in the interest of all the people in the state.
Thank you. My second question is, and I've discovered this during this last 2-week period, most people prefer to vote for the position instead of having you appointed saying you're the incumbent they would prefer to you not run or run and then be voted in. What's your comments on that?
I think that's ridiculous. Who wouldn't want to just come in here and be anointed with the title of Senate and not have to run a campaign, not have to work door to door, walk door to door, not have to raise money, not have to go to meetings, not have to go to debates, not have to go out and actually meet the people and talk to the people and learn about their district and put in the hard work and efforts that it takes to run a campaign. Anybody would want that. But that's not, that person, that seat filler, we don't need a seat filler. We need someone who is accountable to the people. We need someone who will be looking out for the people and who will have the people's back. We need someone with legislative experience. We need someone who can hit the ground running, not someone who needs to be on a learning curve of what to do. Also, we need someone who has redistricting experience, and I am the only person out of all 13 who has redistricting experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Schutte, your question, please.
Hello? My question is, what do you believe is essential when working with people who hold differing views and perspectives?
Well, that's something very dear to my heart since I am a bipartisan legislator and work together with my colleagues in the Democrat Party as well as in the Republican Party every single session. I think it's important and very, very important to be honest and to have compassion for others. I think it's important to be a listener. Too many people want to talk. But if you're a listener and you try to understand where the other person is coming from, regardless of their political party, their background, their upbringing, if you listen to that person and approach them with compassion and an open mind, most people want the same things. Most people want a roof over their head. They want their kids to go to a quality school and have a quality education. They want clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. We're not that far apart just because we have different political party affiliations. It's very easy for me to make friends regardless of their political party affiliation, and I do it each and every session. I'm still friends with people that are Democrats today. We still talk to each other and text each other.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, Ms. Krasner, can't thank you enough for applying for this position and participating in this civic activity. It's really a joy even for all of us to do this. It's not going to be easy for us to make a decision, but it's a process. It's a civic process, and it's a worthwhile one. So again, you're welcome to stay if you would like, or you may leave. It's certainly your choice.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here today before all of you, and I would respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you. Okay, we have Ms. Neitz. If you'll just give us a moment to let her swap out, please. Okay, Ms. Neitz, if you'd like to come up, that would be wonderful. I'll give you just a little bit of background while you're getting seated. How the process will work is we're going to do, Ms. Neitz has been before us for several boards and commissions, so she's actually probably the only one very familiar with our processes, but we will each ask you a question upon the conclusion of this, and then you're welcome to stay in the audience if you'd like upon the conclusion, and then when we're done interviewing the final candidate, this board will make its decision. In the interest of time, I ask that you be as concise and to the point as possible in your responses. Okay, so I'm going to just start with general. Question is to please tell us why you believe you should be selected as the candidate to fill seat 16 and whether or not you're going to run for the seat. And then if I can start with you putting your name on the record. Oh, is it green? There you go.
Okay, just checking on that. My name is Maxine Neitz, and I decided to step up to the hustings for this position because I feel that it's important for Nevada to continue its citizen legislature and being one who has not ever served in a political or partisan position before, I felt that that would be a good thing for you guys to have somebody to consider in that position.
And you will or will not run for the seat?
Depending on what happens with reapportionment, if the seat still exists after reapportionment, I would have to consider that in the future. I am not a professional politician, so I'm not sure that I would.
So then I'll ask you my first question. What committees did Senator Kekeffer serve on, and what experience do you have to support those committees?
I'm not familiar with his background and his career, but I do have background to serve on committees. I've served with the New York City Police Department, so any committees relating to justice and to police activities, I could serve on with great knowledge. I've also worked for NASA, so any committees having to do with science, I would be able to serve on with great knowledge. And any committees that have to do with education and or community activities, since I'm very active in my community and active in education issues, those are committees that I think I could serve on with great expertise.
Thank you. We'll move on. Supervisor Giomi, your question,
All right,
please.
thank you. Thank you, Maxine, for applying. The most immediate issue that I think you'll address in this position is that of redistricting in the upcoming session, special session. What will your approach be specifically to redistricting? And what concerns do you have overall, and how will you address those concerns?
Well, I believe that the most important things to keep in mind when doing redistricting are the two items. One is population, to make sure that population is evenly distributed throughout the districts. And the other is community of interest, to make sure that communities of interest are not split up because of political considerations, so that individual cities, individual voting wards, neighborhoods of great cohesion should not be split because some are Democrats and some are Republicans, and people want to try to kind of gerrymander those things. I think it's important to keep the communities of interest together as a single district.
Supervisor White, your question, please.
Thank you. Hi, Maxine. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Mo.
So, are you familiar with the Carson City Charter? And if you are, do you foresee any needed changes to the Carson City Charter?
Well, I have recently read the Carson City Charter, and nothing jumped out at me as needing a particular change. I think the way that city government is run is fairly good. We have voting amongst all, even though you vote for a candidate of your ward, we have universal voting amongst the entire city, and I think that's a good thing so that all supervisors represent all of the citizens.
Thank you.
Supervisor Jones, your question, please.
Maxine, how are you?
I'm good, Stan. How are you?
Thanks. After our last census, between 73 and 75% of all registered voters reside in Clark County. How do you propose to ensure that Northern Nevada will get equal representation, or how do you propose to negotiate that in the upcoming special session?
Well, if you're referring to the redistricting itself, or?
Right.
Yes. Well, as I said, I'm an advocate not of dividing districts along their history of partisan voting, but rather along their community of interest, where all the kids go to school, what their wards are in terms of their local voting, those type of boundaries, rather than saying, okay, on this block they voted Democrat and on that block they voted Republican, so, let's split them, or let's, squish this small group into that bigger group because of their problems and because of the way they vote. So I think that I need to be very mindful of keeping that at the forefront, and I think all the senators and legislators should be mindful of that, and that is the purpose of redistricting, is to make sure that the population is balanced and that people are not split from their neighbors. We should not have district lines that run down the middle of a block and split up a neighborhood.
My second question is, I've learned during this last 2-week period that there seems to be a consensus that most people really don't like for you to be appointed and then rerun. So how do you counter that? In other words, the voters would like to say who gets that position.
Well, like I said, at this point, I've not been an elected politician on a partisan basis, so I don't know whether I would run again or not. But on the other hand, I'm semi-retired and my time is my own, so I would have the time to devote to an election. I have run for partisan office before, and I'm familiar with the campaign process and campaign requirements. So it's something that I could do if I decided to do it.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schutte, your question, please.
Hello, Maxine.
Hi, Lisa.
What do you believe is essential when working with people who hold differing views or perspectives?
Well, I think being able to negotiate and to see the points that are in common and try to emphasize those is very important. In my history, I've done positions when I worked for NASA. I did a lot of negotiating. With each project had a negotiator, and we had to divvy up the available resources. And so negotiating was the core of doing that. I've been a Democrat and I've been a Republican, so I understand about reaching across the aisle and trying to make things that, might seem small, but our points of a commonality grow into agreements. And I believe that I could do that job.
Well, Ms. Neitz, I'd like to thank you so very much for applying for this position. Participating in this civic process, no matter the outcome, is a worthwhile activity, and we really appreciate your application. Again, you're welcome to stay and listen to the remaining candidates, or you may leave. It's totally your choice. But again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board, for seeing me and hearing me today. I do believe in the concept of citizen legislature. As our godfather of our state, Abraham Lincoln, said, government by the people, for the people, and of the people. And I think that we need to look to citizens to be legislators and not so much professional politicians. So thank you very much. I think I might.
We are going to take just like a 2-minute recess while Ms. Paulson gets the next candidate, and then we'll come right back in.
Thank you.
everybody. Ms. Warren, are you ready to come back on? Yes, Madam Mayor. Okay, we're back in a session here, and we are now going to move on to, I believe, Mr. Payton? Great. So just a little bit of background on what's going to happen here. I ask for you to please limit your responses to be clear and concise. If you can help us with that, it would be most appreciated, as we still have several interviews to get through. What we're going to do is ask you a series of questions, and then upon the conclusion, you are more than welcome to stay in the audience and listen to the final interviews if you would like, or you may leave. It's totally your choice. At the final conclusion of the interview, this panel will then make a decision on the selected candidate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much again for applying. We really appreciate it. So can you tell us why you believe you should be selected as the candidate to fill seat 16, and whether you're going to run for the office and why or why not?
Sure. Is this a question, or can I read a prepared
You
statement?
may read, your choice.
Okay.
Time.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and ladies and gentlemen of the Carson Board of Supervisors. My name's Larry Payton, and I'm here today because I have applied for the vacancy left by ex-Senator Ben Kiekifer for Nevada Senate Seat District 16. The reason I have applied in particular is that, in essence, the job of a senator is to act on behalf of the American people in legislative sessions and to ensure the voice of the common citizen is heard. When looking at the district map of Senate District 16, I have had the honor and privilege to work the entire district, and I believe I can represent it well. In my business dealings, I've had the opportunity to support, meet, and help clients and businesses from Hidden Valley to Incline Village, which I first moved to Nevada 17 years ago, and subsequently moved to Reno in 2013. In Carson City, I sit on the board of directors for the Nevada Builders Alliance, a builders association that has over 1,000 Nevada business owners as members. It's the largest in the state, and we have our board meetings right across the street from the Nevada State Legislature. I currently reside on the Washoe County Planning Commission, so I am practiced in hearing and listening to constituents on issues, at least regarding building and development. I have extensive experience in insurance and real estate, where I navigate and negotiate large and complex contracts, a trait that I think will be helpful to somebody in the legislature. As far as serving my community, I have served on several local nonprofit organizations spanning over the last 15 years, from the Incline Village Optimist Club as their president, the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue organization as their vice chair, where we had to coordinate with many local and state agencies such as the Washoe County Sheriff's Department, Washoe County and their related departments, Nevada Highway Patrol, Department of Transportation, and such to obtain permits. I've also served on the sponsors committee of the Reno Rodeo for the last 7, and mentioned earlier the Nevada's Builders Alliance for the last 10.
And you will or will not run for the seat? You will or will not run for the seat?
And I will be running for the seat.
You would run for the seat?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So then my question for you is, can you tell me what committees Senator Kiekifer served on and what experience you have that will support those committees?
You know, I can't answer to that. I do not know what seats he actually had sit on when it comes to choosing seats in the future, as I know that that's part of the senator's duties. I would contact the seats and committees and see which best would be a fit for me and the constituents and my strengths.
Thank you. Supervisor Giomi, your question?
Thank you, Mr. Payton. The most immediate issue that you'll face in the upcoming special session is redistricting. So I'd like to know what your approach to redistricting will be, if you could be specific. And then I'd like to know beyond that, what concerns you have overall about redistricting and what you'll do to address those concerns.
Redistricting is going to be a hot button seat issue, namely because of where we sit as far as senators, and it has to be fair because at the end of the day, I believe the governor has the chance to veto it. So if it's not going to be something that is going to meet and pass his desk, it is something that can be vetoed. It needs to be something that is fair and equitable so that the constituents are represented properly.
Supervisor White, your question, please.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You are, do you foresee any changes in the Carson City any needed changes in the Carson City Charter?
I am not familiar with the Carson City Charter itself. I believe a lot of documents are working documents, and as times change, things do need to be updated as they do come up.
Thank you.
Supervisor Jones, your question, please.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
After the last census, 73 to 75% of all registered voters in Nevada reside in Clark County. As discussed earlier, redistricting is going to be a prime issue. How do you plan to ensure that Northern Nevada gets equal representation if possible?
Well, that's probably going to be having to do some meetings and some phone calls with the city council members of all the districts in Carson and Washoe. As I mentioned before, as far as redistricting goes, it's going to have to be split up equitably to the population of where the constituents are going to be residing.
My second question is, you indicated you probably would run if you were appointed. I'm experiencing that most people would prefer to vote you in rather than have you appointed. How do you propose handling that issue?
That's what it will be. That's what it will be.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schutte, your question, please.
Thank you for applying. My question is, what do you believe is essential when working with people who hold differing views or perspectives?
Everybody has their opinions and views, and not everybody has the same ones. When finding solutions to problems that require both seats of the aisle, sometimes it requires a 40,000-foot view to look at a problem or an issue to see what's best for the people and not necessarily yourself and your party. You are typically representing a party, but you have to do what's best for the people.
Thank you.
Again, I want to thank you so very much for applying for this position, and you're welcome to stay and listen to the final couple of interviews.
Thank you very
Or
much.
you can leave. It's totally your choice.
Okay,
But
thank
again,
you for your time.
Thank you.
You're fine. More than 6 feet from everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for
And
having
for
me.
the record, would you please put your name?
Yes, my name is Don Tatro.
Okay, so what we're going to do here today is just have a general discussion with you. We'll each ask you a question or so, and then upon the conclusion of that, you're welcome to go into the audience and stay and listen to, I believe we only have 1 or 2 candidates after you. Upon the final interview, then we will make our decision. I ask if at all possible, you please keep your answers as short and concise as possible so that we can try to get through this process today. And on the record, on behalf of all of us, I just want to thank you so much for applying and participating in this civic process, no matter the outcome. Okay, so can you please tell us why you should be selected as the candidate to fill seat 16 and whether or not you're going to run for the seat?
Absolutely, thank you, and thank you for having me today. It is a pleasure to be here. So, the reason I'm running is serving in the district that I grew up in, that has shaped my life, would be truly an honor. I can't express enough how this region and the district itself has been so instrumental to me and to my family. Being a product of Carson City Public Schools, growing up here, participating in activities, refereeing basketball games just down the hallway here, and then now living with my family in the district as well, raising them, coaching them, being involved in the community. It would be an honor to serve out the remainder of this term. just starting in government kind of from a young age, helping with my uncle's campaigns here in Carson for supervisor, my dad's for justice of the peace, even interned for Senator Richard Bryan in high school. So it's been something near and dear to me for a very long time. And I think that it would be truly a privilege to go there. So, and then also the other things I think that add to my qualifications are my past experience in several areas. One of them being working in the United States Senate in DC, where it was essential to have an understanding of state, federal, and local legislative processes, as well as parliamentary procedure. Additionally, my time at the Builders Association of Northern Nevada, I think would also be beneficial. I worked there with many legislators advocating on behalf of our membership and making housing accessible for all Nevadans. Through several sessions going through the legislative process and that kind of thing was extremely successful. And then I think rounding it out is my time in the private sector. I think having an understanding of the consequences, good and bad, of action at all levels of government on your business are critical. And I think that would also help me in working with the constituents, working with businesses, local governments in this role that I would take serious, but also it would be an honor and it would be a pleasure to do it. So I look at it as fulfilling my civic duty for this time, as well as the other things that I do to stay involved in my community, whether it be I'm on the Washoe County Manager Advisory Committee. I was chairman of Reno Mayor Sheevy's Housing Task Force. I'm on the Realtors Legislative Committee, Ace Charter High School Board, and probably the most important, which has been the most fun, is coaching my kids. But being involved in the community, I think, is essential. I think this would be a great opportunity to do that and be an example for my kids, to give them the opportunity that I have had in this district. So in all of that, I guess those are the reasons. I think that's the underlying brief qualifications. I don't want to sit here. I know you've had many other candidates, but I truly think it would be an honor. And to answer your question on running, I don't have any intention of running. I didn't have any intention of doing this several weeks ago, but I don't have any intention at this point to run for any office.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So my question is, what committees did Senator Kekeffer sit on? And what experience do you have to support that committee?
I believe Senator Kekeffer sat on the Health and Human Services Committee. He is definitely on the Interim Finance Committee, and I believe Government Affairs Committee. And through those roles, I think being involved in the legislative process in my time in the ways that I mentioned would help. For the Interim Finance Committee, absolutely, in the budgets and ensuring that Northern Nevada gets its share of funds that are to be allocated by the state. I think Health and Human Services, when I was in Washington, D.C., the senator I worked, Senator Ensign, was on Health and Human Services as well. So I have an understanding of more than I'd like to share, and probably don't want to hear about Medicare formula funding for Medicare Part D, but I think those would help. And then government affairs, obviously I've been involved through these various roles with all levels of government.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Giomi, your question, please.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Don, for applying. Appreciate it. The most immediate issue that you'll be addressing as a state senator in the upcoming special session is redistricting. So I'm interested in what your approach to redistricting will be. And beyond that, I'd like to know what concerns you have overall about redistricting and what you'll do to address those concerns.
Absolutely. It will be a critical and near immediate thing that I would have to face and address. First and foremost is I would be in the minority party, and the majority party will have the ability to draw the lines, essentially. I think ensuring that Northern Nevada keeps fair representation with the growth in Clark County is paramount. I think that if you look at the influence Northern Nevada is having, and just by glance at our constitutional offices, nearly all being Southern Nevada members, I think it's critical that we keep our voice and our influence and try and make those fair and equitable across different jurisdictions, because I think to sliver out sections of people of the same and like communities isn't the right way to do it. I think there's a right way to do it, and that's the fair way to do it. I know that the courts did it last time, which were questionably constitutional at best, but they came out with probably the closest lines ever, and the fairest maps, keeping everything within the 10% guidelines. So I think that would be of utmost importance to me. I hope that answered your question.
Supervisor White, your question, please.
Thank you. Hi, Don. Thanks for being here today. Are you familiar with the Carson City Charter? And if you are, do you foresee any needed changes in the Carson City Charter?
That's a tough one. I'm not that familiar with the Carson City Charter. I don't believe I'm aware of significant issues with the charter. It is something that I would absolutely lean to you all on if there are changes necessary. I believe in the last session, Assemblyman Kramer, maybe it was 2 sessions ago, Assemblyman Kramer had a bill on Duck Hill and emergency response times, but I don't know if that directly impacts the charter. And I don't know, I'm not studied up enough to give you a quick answer on that, but I don't think anyone's trying for Ormsby County again, though. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That was good. Supervisor Jones, your question, please.
Good afternoon, Don. After our recent census, 73 to 75% of all registered voters in Nevada live in Clark County or reside in Clark County. How do you plan to overcome or ensure that Northern Nevada will receive equal consideration?
I think all the tools need to be on the table for that. And as far as this district goes, some of the largest growth in Washoe County of the 65,000 residents increase is in this district, in southern Reno, or in southern Washoe. So I think that using all the tools available to ensure, like I said, the equity between communities and their representation versus the Southern Nevada growth, and I know it's substantial, but it's been a battle we've been discussing here for my life of how do we maintain our influence in Northern Nevada, and we've, I think, been effective through working together, and it's not to say that Southern Nevada is the enemy. They're not. There's people we need to work with and ensure that they understand the needs of this community, and to make sure that, when we do draw these lines, that they represent it. I mean, some of the lines now, even for Congress, it's laughable. So I think ensuring that they're equitable and would be upheld in a court is critical.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schutte, your question, please.
Thank you for applying. My question is, what do you believe is essential when working with people who hold differing views and perspectives?
I think that just comes down to how you go about your day-to-day life. I think we all have different views and perspectives, and having a conversation with people rather than typing on a keyboard late at night and with vitriolic language is one way to parse that. I think that having conversations, just because you differ doesn't mean the other person's bad. I think I've shown great success in that area, working with a variety of legislators to help my association at the time at the Builder Center. Brooks ran a solar bill we were pushing, who was Democrat. Mayor Sheevy was very much, we worked very hard to establish a relationship, and I managed to become the chairman of her housing task force and somebody she looked to for input as far as housing and growth and development. So I think it's essential that just because we disagree on one thing doesn't mean we disagree on everything, and I think I do that personally as well as professionally. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you so much for applying for this position, and you're welcome to stay as we interview the final 1 or 2 candidates, and then we'll make our selection. You're not required to stay, but you may.
Great, thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Okay. Nice. Your fan club is in the audience. Miss Paulson, did Miss Glover come? Okay, I just want to, for the record, note that we've given Miss Glover all opportunities, so thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and
You are-
Supervisors.
Sorry that you had to wait so long to get a turn to come in, but thank you. It's a process, and I guess the W made you last, right? Yes,
I'm used to it,
there you go.
so.
I got married so that I could have a B and get called on first,
Well,
so.
the manager said she was a Y, and that would have put her at the end of the line, so.
There you go. So what we're going to do here is I ask that you answer the questions as succinct and to the point as possible, just so that I give you the same instructions and process as everyone else, even though there isn't someone coming after you. So at the conclusion of your interview, this board will be making a decision, and you're welcome to stay for that to see who we select.
Thank you.
So just in general, would you please tell us why we should select you for the candidate for seat 16, and then whether or not you plan on running for this seat, and why or why not?
Okay. Why I chose to run or to apply for the seat? Honestly, I think I'm the most qualified candidate. I have to retract that. Lisa Krasner is probably the most experienced and current. She serves there now. She knows the people, and I can't compete with that. I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I've been out of the system for a while, but I've tried to keep my contacts, not only in this area, but in Las Vegas as well. I'm a political junkie. I lived in northern Nevada for most of my life, some 66 years now. I served in the legislature 3 terms and was elected from this very district, that portion that is in Washoe County. I also served a couple terms as Republican floor leader. I'm motivated by reapportionment. My political career is behind me. I last served 40 years ago, before most of my contemporaries behind me were born, so I understand that. But I love Northern Nevada, and reapportionment is not going to go well for Northern Nevada. The best scenario is going to be bad. The worst scenario is probably best represented by Senate District 14, if you're familiar with it. A fellow named Ira Hansen lives in North Reno. His district, thanks to the last reapportionment, goes to the Oregon border, Winnemucca, and back down to Death Valley, just north of Beatty. One of the good things for someone being from Carson City is reapportionment can't remove the incumbent if they live in Carson City. Therefore, the senator for Carson City will remain. What will be the Senate district? Based on what I just told you, who knows? My job is to go down there and fight like hell for it. Carson City's got 58,000 voters. The new Assembly district will be 74,000, and the Senate district will be about 150,000, slightly less. It's just ugly. When you make that, add to that the fact that 30 assemblymen live in Clark County. The majority, obviously, the greater majority of the senators are from Clark County. And when reapportionment comes, it's not even a partisan issue. They're all Democrats, or the vast majority of them are, so their fight's going to be, gosh, what can I get out of this versus somebody else? They all want to cherry pick precincts. They all want to make sure they don't get too many Republicans. And if they can work that all out, the Senate will come up with a plan. But then the assemblyman in those districts is going to say, wait a minute, I don't want all these Republicans, and I want some of those cherry picks, to myself over there. And so there's just a lot of negotiation to be done that most people don't think about. And I have experience in that. I don't have experience in reapportionment, but I have a lot of experience in the legislature and how the wheeling and dealing goes. And that resolution isn't going to be done by brute force. There just aren't enough of us. It's going to be done by tact, finesse, goodwill, a lot of luck, and experience. And I'm happy that I can bring that experience to you. Do I want to run for it again? No, my political career is behind me. Do I think anybody who applies for it should run? Absolutely. There was an article in the Sparks Tribune this morning, and I thought it was poignant. It says, basically, if you don't want to run for this office, you shouldn't apply for it. This is a dedicated effort by whoever you select to represent you and to go forward and do the best they can. Having said that, I wished I had been appointed. I wished I'd never had to run for office. I wish I could have gone out there and said, I'm the incumbent when the next election does show up. And that, by the way, just gives everybody else an unfair playing field. If I'm selected, the good news is those people will have an open primary and an open general election, and they can run on their merits, and whoever the best person is should serve. And God bless them for wanting to do it. So I'm a creature on both sides, but I do believe my experience will best serve Carson City and Washoe County without getting into that political fray.
Thank you so much. Can you tell me what committee Senator Kekeffer sat on and what experience you'll have to fill that role?
Every legislator gets one, I'll go back to the term cherry. Government Affairs, Judiciary, Ways and Means. Senator Kekeffer serves on Senate Finance. I say Ways and Means because I was in the Assembly. I served several times on Ways and Means Committee. I may have been the first freshman representative on Ways and Means since the 1860s when the first legislature convened. And that was an honor, but thanks to my contemporaries, they thought I was up to it and I got appointed to it. So the other committees are less important, but the key is Senate Finance, and I have a lot of experience with that.
Thank you. Supervisor Giomi, your question, please.
All right, Mr. Weiss, thank you for applying. You talked about reapportionment. It is the elephant in the room and will be the subject of an upcoming special session. You covered a little bit of my question. I'm going to ask it and let you reiterate if you'd like or elaborate. What will your approach be to redistricting? And secondarily, what are your concerns about redistricting and how will you address those concerns?
First off, the Senate district being shared between two counties is awkward. It doesn't happen in most of the districts. The good news is I see no conflict between Carson City and Washoe County. If it's there, then I'm too ignorant to know about it. Since sometime in early 1970s, Washoe County has been a cow county. They just didn't recognize it then. But Clark County's been running the show for 50 years, and they're going to continue to run the show. So one point I touched on is that if the senator is elected from Carson and lives in Carson City, they cannot redistrict that person out. That Senate district has to include Carson City. Where it goes from Carson City, we don't know. So that would be my first line. If they reside in Washoe County, different horse race. Then the senator for Carson City could very well be from Clark County. And again, I just go back to Senate District 14 to show you what can be done. And if they did that much then, I don't want to think about what they could do now. So my approach to reapportionment is to try and get along. First off, if I was appointed, I wouldn't have much time, but I would like to get to know as many of the Clark County legislators as I could. and at least I'll know my way around the building when I walk in. So I guess I have a good career of being able to get along with people and cooperate. And there's, like I said, behind the scenes, it's going to be cordial in public, very cordial. At least it'll start out that way. Behind the scenes, it's going to be more like a pack of hyenas, and Northern Nevada's the bait, you know? And so we just have to take those differences in, let's just say, a specific Senate district where there's going to be 2 assembly people, and those 2 assembly people are going to be fighting over how to get the best part of that Senate district. And when the smoke clears, we all get to vote on it, okay? So the Senate can come up, and the Senate obviously is going to be, senators are going to be working with and against each other to get the best deal they can for their Senate district. But we all get to vote on it. And so somewhere down the line, there's usually a little give and take, and you say, okay. And by the way, you know, up in Northern Nevada, this is what we're concerned about. And if we can go along with what you want to do down there and you can help us here, more power to you. That's really about the best we can hope for. And that's what I would work very hard for. There's a country western song that says, I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. And that once will be dedicated to you at the legislature. And then it's going to be sayonara for my political career.
Thank you so much. Supervisor White, your question, please.
Thank you. Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Are you familiar with the Carson City Charter? And if you are, do you foresee any needed changes to the Carson City Charter?
I am not.
Thank you.
Supervisor Jones?
Good afternoon, Bob. You've kind of answered part of my question. I want a little clarification. You said if the Senate resides from Carson, that seat's protected?
The senator has to remain in office. They cannot
Are you talking
redistrict.
about if they're from District 16, they don't have to reside in Carson?
If they live in Carson City, they cannot redistrict that senator out of
We
business.
don't have anybody, oh, yeah, we do, okay. So if none of the people, or the person that we select does not reside in Carson City, not necessarily our district is protected, right?
Correct.
Well, first, I live in Carson City, so I guess that's my selfish interest.
Your address is Carson City?
Yes, I live on Winnie Lane.
Okay,
I bought the Bliss Ranch Estate,
okay.
and we remodeled a horse barn, and we now live in a barn, a very nice barn. So it's not an issue for Washoe County. I mean, Washoe County, the numbers are Washoe County is going to get 3 solid Senate districts, and then they have, I'm not sure what the number is, but about a third of a district, so let's say 40, 50,000 people that are going to go somewhere else. Now, having said that, they can also draw lines, as they did in District 14, so that there could well be 4 senators from Washoe County. It's not unrealistic to assume that Mr. Settlemeyer's district, speaking of elephants in the room, is at risk. Pete Gogachia's district in Eureka, Austin, Eureka,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
is at risk. This district is at risk. They're all at risk if they want to do this. As a developer, I'd call them flag lots. So when you have a street and you want to get as many properties on the street as you can, you go to that minimum width. And when that doesn't work well enough, then you take a flagpole and you give a 20, 30-foot easement down to the back of that lot, and then you can have a couple of more lots behind it. And that is not unlike the distribution or the redistricting that I'm talking about. You could just, it's not unreasonable to assume that reapportionment could be a series of north-south lines from Clark County that come up and encompass all of northern Nevada. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Like it, yes. Okay. Supervisor Shooty, your question, please.
Thank you so much for applying. My question is, what do you believe is essential when working with people who hold differing views or perspectives?
Well, my favorite governor was Michael Callahan. Maybe none of you know him or knew him, but he was a Democrat. And I could talk to Mike. I would call him at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. He was in the office. Now, we were such a minority as Republicans that it wasn't a partisan issue. But I could deal with him when he had issues that he wanted support for in the legislature. He called me as much as he would Joe Dini or anybody else, because at least I represented a little block. When it got to the Democrats, there were too many of them it was like herding cats. So I've always felt I've been a good negotiator, that I'm a reasonable person, that I can see the right and the wrong. I think that there's not a lot of gray in the world. There's a lot of black and a lot of white. Unfortunately, the resolution has to be gray. When I look at the senator from West Virginia that just plain wouldn't back President Trump when he was in office because of principle on a particular issue, and he was the key vote, I respected his position, but the art of compromise says, what's the greater good? And I'm all for, it's not mealy, it's mealy mouth or in between. It's just a practical fact of life that to get the best that you can get, you're probably going to have to give something. And as a minority legislator, minority both in the terms of political party and geography with Clark County, I had a very good record in dealing with people. And I've retained a lot of those relationships. Unfortunately, a lot of my contemporaries aren't around anymore. But you know what? Some of their kids and nephews and nieces are still in the system. They're in public office. My wife was raised in Clark County. My wife was a Democrat attorney who came to Carson City, who was appointed by a Democratic senator to go work at the legislature as in the council bureau to draft bills. So she knows how salami's made. And she will be a big asset to me because of her being raised in Clark County. We have a lot of both social and political friends down there, relations that we can fall back on. I also served on the board of First Interstate. It was the largest bank in the state. And I got to know a lot of people in Clark County as part of that. And then I was appointed board of director of Harvey's. You think of Harvey's as being at Lake Tahoe, but we also had the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas. And so I got to know a lot of people through the gaming industry at that. And then most recently, I was a trustee for Charles Chuck Mathewson. I don't know if any of you knew him or not. He just died a week ago. Probably Northern Nevada's greatest philanthropist, a real billionaire that made it from day one as just being a poor kid getting out of the Army. And I had the privilege of not only administering that trust, but giving a lot of money to local charities. And so I've had great exposure in understanding the needs of our community, basically through just dealing with those charities. I'm a better communicator than I'm demonstrating at the moment.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. That concludes our questions, and I believe, unless, the city manager, would you take one last look for Ms. Glover? I want our records to appropriately reflect that we gave her all due consideration. But other than that, it looks like it is concluded, and I cannot thank you enough for applying and participating today in this process, all of the candidates. I see several of you out in the room. She's not here. Please let the record reflect that Ms. Glover is a no-show, just so that everyone is clear on that. So now it's time for us to bring it back to here to decide what we think is going to be the best candidate for the seat 16 to represent both Carson City and Washoe County. Where do we see this role and which candidate we feel will serve in that capacity to represent us all? So
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Okay, so we have several opportunities we can do. We could each kind of see if we can get to the top 2 or 3 that we're all considering, and then just go over the pluses that we see for each of those 2 or 3. So if that will work, I don't mind starting and saying who my top 3 are that we would like to consider. But that first of all, I am so impressed with all of you. I mean, really, every single one of you could do this job. But the rules of the day are we have to make a decision. That's the role we sit in. So for me, I thought that Mr. Weiss, Miss Krasner, and 3 ties. Yeah, the other 3 were really, all of you brought something different or the same, but I think I liked Mr. Goodnow. So those are my 3. Stacy, did you want to?
Sure.
Your 3.
I'll weigh in. I will also reiterate my thanks to everyone who applied. What I really loved was that almost everyone who applied said that they were doing it for the good of the community, and I really appreciate that. I also want to state that, we're largely immaterial in this whole process. I'm not sure you all are aware of the process, but I appreciate you taking the time to come to Carson City, even though we're essentially immaterial. We will select a candidate, and then we'll hold a joint meeting on the 10th of November. At that joint meeting, we will get a proportionate vote with the Washoe County Board. There are 10 members when the 2 boards combine, but because 60% of the population of this district lives in Washoe County, they will get 6 votes, we will cast 4 votes. So while I appreciate your efforts and your time and coming to give us due course, your efforts really have to be focused up there. Having said all that, 3 people stood out for me, and that is Mr. Weiss, Mr. Tatro, and Mr. Goodnow. Those would be my 3.
Okay. Supervisor White, did you want to give us your 3? And we'll see if we can get the list here.
Not to be redundant, but I would have to echo the sentiments that the mayor and Mr. Giomi have given. I'm not usually known to be somebody that has a difficult time making decisions. I can tell you that in this situation, I wish we had time to go through a primary. Really like to see how this would all suss out when you've had a better opportunity to really look at the position that you're looking for. The 3 that really stood out for me was Lisa Krasner, Bob Weiss, and Melissa Clement. I think they demonstrated the intricate knowledge of what goes on in the legislature. I have 2 concerns of what I'm looking for here, and that is 1, picking somebody that is up to speed immediately. To a lesser degree, I do think we need to protect that seat here in Carson City so that it can't be district away. But I feel like that's kind of a secondary issue for me, because I think we can work on that even without a Carson City person. I'm not concerned whether who we choose would run or not run. It's not a concern to me. So at this point, I really think my first choice would be Lisa Krasner.
Thank you. Supervisor Jones, will you give us your 3, please?
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming down and applying, taking the time to reach out over the last 2 weeks and contact us. I appreciate that. I guess maybe I'll look at this a little different. I think this is a very critical time in our state. Redistricting is going to be with us for 10 years, and it could be huge and not in our favor. That's what I'm alluding to. My 3 candidates were Krasner, Weiss, and Tatro.
Krasner and Tatro?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Schutte, your 3, please.
I echo what the other supervisors have said, and I'm really, really impressed with everyone, and there were just gems. Everybody had really powerful comments and thoughts, and so this is very difficult. I agree. My top 3, and actually my top 4, Weiss, Tatro, Krasner, and Goodnow.
I'm sorry, I got the 3. Weiss, Kreisner, Goodnow, and who was the other one?
And Tatro.
And Tatro, thank you. Oh, she did 4, I
Sorry, I
see.
know.
I was pretty truthful that I had 2 or 3 really in that same score thing. So, all right. I've listened now, and it's up to us. So looking at what each of us have listed, we can decide whether we now want to move. Each and every one of us selected Weiss. So I do want to note that when I just recorded all of us, we each, and this is the only candidate that we all put in our top selection mode. Then the next majority was Krasner, and then a tie between Tatro and Goodnow. We can decide whether we're ready for someone to make a stab at a motion because Mr. Weiss received a vote from each of us. Or do we want to talk about the differences between the top 3, Krasner, Weiss, Goodnow, Tatro? What's the pleasure? I got us this far. It's no easy decision here.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not an easy decision, but
No.
I'm willing to make a motion.
Give it a stab.
All right, I move to nominate Bob Weiss to fill the existing vacancy in the Senate seat for District 16 in the Nevada Legislature.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of Mr. Weiss as the candidate for Carson City's choice for the Senate seat 16. On discussion, I'm going to say that I'm going to support Mr. Weiss, and I am very impressed with Ms. Krasner and Mr. Tatro, all of you. I believe that redistricting is the number one issue that will face us for 10 years. So this is not an issue of where do I look at skill sets over maybe the next 2 years or 3 years. If we don't get redistricting right, we will suffer for 10 years. Whether we like the rules of redistricting or not, the fact that Mr. Weiss has a Carson City address does guarantee, if he is the person in the position, that Carson City will remain in that district and not have an opportunity to be spoked out into the Las Vegas, Clark County arena. Whether we like the rules of the game or not, that's the rules. Having a physical body in Carson City keeps our district closer to what I believe is in the best interest of the Washoe County residents and the Carson City residents, is to have a district that is close, right? I don't want to reach out, if I can help it, and get a senator in Las Vegas. to answer my Carson City constituency nor my Washoe County. So I believe we're making the right decision on behalf of the Washoe County residents as well. And so for that purpose, it's not against any other candidate. You were all wonderful. I'm going to support this motion for that reason. Anybody else on discussion? Supervisor White?
I would like to say, I don't think this is a wrong decision. But as I pointed out in my disclaimer that I read at the beginning of this agenda item, I will continue to support Lisa Krasner in her bid for Senate 16.
Absolutely.
When this special session, crazy business is over.
Oh, absolutely concur with that. Anybody else? Or Supervisor Jones, you wanted to make a comment?
These are hard decisions. All right. I say these are hard decisions, and I really want to congratulate Don Tatro.
No.
We need new, younger people, and I congratulate you for running, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the future. So thank you, Don.
Absolutely. Okay. With that, on the motion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. The motion carried unanimously. Again, it was a tough decision. I am impressed with the process, the people, and even actually, I want to thank the rest of this board. I know that it wasn't easy on any of us either. No easy decision here. We really, all of us prefer for the people to make the decision, but the law rests at our level to do this, and so we've, I assure you, done the best job that we knew how to do. So thank you
This
all.
is what we signed up for.
This is what we signed up for. It's difficult, but again, thank you. And as Supervisor Giomi stated, we will be casting that vote on November 10th in the joint meeting. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 24, which is our non-action items. Ms. Paulson, is there anything to report under item 24?
No, not today.
Well, that was clear and concise. Does any member of the board have any items to bring forward under this? We're-
Just say thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your support, your belief. I promise to do.
You can come up under the final public comment. If you give me just one moment, we'll be on that. So anything else under item 24?
Yes.
Oh, Supervisor White?
I just wanted to bring up one thing I forgot this morning. Very nice celebration at Silver Saddle Ranch for the 25th anniversary. That was really fun. I had a great time out there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay through the entire event. Also, over at the Commission on Off-Highway Vehicles, it is now time to get your grants in if you want to get a hold of some of that money to enhance trails out on our public lands. And we have made the decision that we will be splitting that process into 2 cycles this particular year, so that there's kind of a logistic issue for the people that need the money for wintertime, like the snowmobile folks up in Elko and all of that. It's hard for them to get all their planning and everything put together when we do it strictly in the July cycle. So we're going to be splitting that into 2 efforts each year. So if you want to fix up some trails and have OHVs available for everybody across the state, get your applications in.
Thank you, Supervisor White. Supervisor Jones, did you have something to announce?
Yeah, I just think that we, as a board and the city, ought to send our best wishes to Brad during his time of his illness and hopefully his recovery. So.
Thank you. That's good to put out on the record. Nothing but good thoughts and prayers for him and his family. Absolutely.
Felt feelings go out for that family.
It's hard to express. Supervisor Schutte?
It's wonderful that November, it's our 25th anniversary for the Quality of Life Initiative, and I echo what Supervisor White said about the Silver Saddle Ranch celebration. That was just great and a really nice turnout. Another thank you to Parks and Rec. Bonanza was just wonderfully ridiculous in the best terms. Joyful, happy, and so well organized.
Did they ever get a final count on how many they think are there?
I know that we had like 2,400 stickers in addition to the candy, in addition to word searches, and everything was gone.
We came for 1,000 people. We were out.
Yeah, and then kudos to the Nevada Day team. What a wonderful, wonderful parade. And so just to further celebrate this fantastic community.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other comments under that section, so we're going to move on to item number 25 of our agenda, which is final public comment. First, may I have, is there anyone on the phone?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Thank you so much. Mr. Weiss, final public comment.
I just wanted to thank you. It's an honor to represent you. I will, if I survive the Washoe County part of this ordeal, I can assure you that I'll be in contact with you throughout the special session. I don't know if anybody shared this with you, but the word on the street is you meet on, I believe, the 10th to make a final decision. The special session is probably going to convene on the 12th.
Yeah, we know.
So it's going to be a busy time. I'm going to take the initiative to contact as many people as I can now, just in preparation and in hopes that I can survive this. Like I said, I don't see any conflict between Carson City and Washoe County. I've actually lived in Washoe County for almost 60 years, but I'm not quite the favorite son there yet. But I tell you, your unanimous vote will go a long way in helping with that. Had it been fractured, it would be a much different situation. So I greatly appreciate your vote of confidence, and I'll just do the best I can for you.
No pressure, but you got to go win there.
Yeah, you gotta get it there.
Any help you can offer will be.
I hope that the Washoe County Board understands it wasn't that we're selecting Carson City resident as the reason for a residence against a Washoe County resident. It's the issue of protecting the district for both Washoe County and Carson City, that we have a contiguous district. I think that's the most important thing we can have, to have representatives in the legislature for Northern Nevada. I would just hate to see Carson City districted into a Clark County region. And I know people are saying, oh, that couldn't happen. It can. The spokes can be drawn any way that they do, so.
I agree with you completely.
Right.
And I think Carson City should be attached to Washoe County in the Senate District. And I would urge all of you to contact the Washoe County Commissioners and share your concern and explain to them that it wasn't a regional choice. If it had been a regional choice, Don Tatro would be the nominee. He's the hometown boy. He was born here, raised here, schooled here. And we all understand, and he's a very qualified person. But to do an effective job, the experience is going to make all the difference. I don't know if it'll be a big difference, but it's going to be a significant difference versus somebody that, 2 days after you're appointed to go in and sit in the Senate is just going to be a little overwhelming. And then to have the alligators turned loose, it's going to be a little tougher. Thank you again.
Thank you again.
We were in that position at the last redistricting. We had 3 assemblymen and 2 senators. So Carson City has lived through that being a spoke. So I hope you can take that message to the Washoe County Commissioners as well, that there needs to be an effort, to not, we talk about in reapportioning, not splitting up communities and neighborhoods.
Right.
Don't do that to Carson City again.
Now, well, it's not a law, but there's a political theory. I don't know if I wrote it down here or not. It's called equitable treatment what do they call it? Gosh, communities of interest has to be a primary consideration in developing these. And I think it would violate certainly the spirit of that if Carson City were split in half somehow, or split up in any fashion. And so there's a lot of good argument to keep it together. And like I said, I'll be a little more effective than I may have been today.
Well, I think more than just about any other area, really in the state, if you think about it, we're unique in that we are a consolidated group of almost 60,000 people that lives as one community. And that really does not exist with that quantity of people anywhere else in the state. It really doesn't exist.
Nope.
I mean, Lyon County has almost 60,000 people, but they're not a community. They're multiple communities.
They are.
And I think, I don't think that many people can appreciate that if they don't experience it, how important it is to not split that community.
And I hope Washoe County will consider
I do too.
Carson City as part of
Right.
that community.
Yeah.
I mean, a good example of that is the mental split between Reno and Sparks, Cold Springs,
Yeah.
North Valleys.
Yeah, they're all different communities.
They do not consider themselves
Right.
to be one community.
Right.
They just don't.
I think Supervisor Giome's right. I hope that we can somehow get that across to Washoe County, that it's in their best interest to protect Carson City. It really is in their best interest.
is, and that's
for
why
their own interests.
That's
It
why I
is.
urge you all to be in contact with as many supervisors as you can, commissioners, excuse me, as you can.
Yeah,
For the
Thank you.
record, you interviewed very well.
yes.
Thank you.
So yes, you
Yes.
did.
I'm rusty.
Well, okay, if that's rusty, we're in good shape. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, I think that there was some other final public comment. Ms. Trzynski, I believe you just indicated you would like to do some, you're already on with green.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joy Trushinsky, for the record. I have a couple items I want to talk to you about. One is using some of that COVID money that we were given to get rid of our voting machines and go to paper ballots with water markings. This would help prevent fraud. If anybody watched Mike Lindell's his show on voting machines, especially Dominion voting machines, they were hacked in the 2020 presidential election. That's one thing. The second thing is Nevada Day was a wonderful, wonderful day. I was on the Republican float, and very few people were wearing masks. Even our governor was walking down the street with no mask. Our Senator Mastos, she was not wearing a mask. And so I am saying to all of you, we do not need masks. And it's harmful to the body, and it decreases our immune system, it weakens it. And I also say that our children who are immune from 99.99% immune from the COVID-19 virus, they shouldn't be wearing masks. It's harmful to them. Also, I want to say that the vaccines, the mandated vaccines that the Biden regime is pushing, is really harmful. I have a friend who had a negative reaction to the Moderna COVID shots. Inflammation caused by an elevated red blood cell count, and it's affecting his liver. And he went to his doctor, and the doctor recommended no booster shot. So I'm telling you, if an adult person wants to get the shot, fine, but not our children, because the shots are dangerous dangerous to our children. And please take a stand on this. Please. I'm going to be coming and talking to you with specific information on how dangerous the vaccines are, especially to healthy adults. And I just want you to listen and take a stand. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Trzynski. I don't see any other public to have any further public comments, so unless there's any objection, we are adjourned. Everybody's good? We're adjournment. Thank you.